Yes, I remembered. So let me record this. We'll go through, if everyone just wants it, you can just quickly say your name, the company you work for if you want to, and then for my own sake, if you've joined before, which many of you I actually recognize in looking at this list from yesterday. And after we do that, we'll do a quick kind of roundtable of updates for folks who had action items who are working on things with KEDA. And then we can go into the proposed agenda. It looks like Tom's added a few good items here that I was just looking at a little bit earlier. Look at some of the new PRs and issues that have come in. I was also just digging through an issue around config map that I didn't quite have time to digest before I joined this call. So we'll go with that. And for anyone who potentially wants to add additional items to the agenda that aren't here, this is a great time. If you even just want to use that link I pasted in the chat window, you can do that. So I'll call people at Daniel. I just had you intro, so I'm just going based on the list here. So Tom, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tom Kerkhoven. I work for a company called KEDA in Belgium, and I'm an Azure architect.
Perfect. Ahmed, I can introduce for you, but you can introduce yourself too.
Sure. I'm Ahmed. I work for Microsoft. I'm a dev.
Great. And then Lance.
Hey, I'm Lance Paul. I work for Red Hat, and I'm an interested community member.
Perfect. And then Lucas.
I work for Red Hat as well, and interested community member as well.
Perfect. And then Mel, I see you you did join on January 9th. I think I was on that call. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself too?
Yeah, I've been on a couple calls. I'm Mel. I use they, them pronouns. I work at Microsoft in CSE on the APS tech domain team under James Sturtevant.
That's right. And you, Mel, I think you were working on the Azure Monitor Scaler. Is that right?
Correct.
Oh, sometimes my memory does do well. Okay, perfect. So let's see. We got Daniel, Mel, Tom, Ahmed, Lance, Lucas. Sandra, you want to quickly intro?
Hi, I'm a developer at IBM.
Perfect. And then last, Zibyanek. We haven't had you on for a bit. You want to quickly intro?
Yeah, hi. My name is Zbigniew. I work for Red Hat, and I'm just came off vacation. So
yes, back in the Czech Republic, I imagine. So yes. Good to have you back on the call. Sweet, great. Okay, so maybe the first thing we'll do then, thanks everyone for joining. For any updates, maybe we'll go on the list of attendees. So there were a few action items I even kind of briefly reminded there. We'll give people a chance to just give quick updates before we get to the agenda. So Dan, do you have any updates on the Postgres stuff? Any questions or conversations or just a quick status update?
Yeah, I can start. I can just do a quick status update. So I've gotten, I got the basic Postgres scaler merged. I'm going to also be working on a MySQL one this week. I've also got the Postgres scaler working with Apache Airflow. So hopefully next week I'll be able to demo that. For anyone who wasn't here last week, so my primary job is working on with Kubernetes integrations for Apache Airflow, and we're using KEDA as a way of auto-scaling Celery workers. And so, yeah, I guess one thing that I was just kind of wanted to ask a little bit about is one thing we were kind of interested in is step scaling. And I wanted to know if anyone's been working on that, or if not, that's something I could look into.
Yes, and I'll let others chime in as well, and I'll do a quick intro here. I see Honor joined as well, who's also from Microsoft, works with Ahmed and myself on the serverless team. So I saw that message in Slack. I didn't reply initially, but I actually had some side conversation this week related to that and unrelated. So Dan kind of mentioned, and he posted on the Slack channel as well, interested in having more control over how it scales, maybe going from like 2 to 4, 4 to 8, just having more control over how the scaling happens, or even 0 to 2. Is that kind of a fair recap, Daniel, of what you were looking for?
Yes.
Yeah. So the challenge today, pro and con, is that we kind of made the design choice initially with KEDA that we were going to use the HPA for everything that we could and only use KEDA for the stuff that HPA couldn't do. And so all KEDA will do today is 0 to 1, and it's always 0 to 1. It's never 0 to 2 or 0 to 4 today. And then once it creates the initial one, it creates an auto scale rule for the HPA. And then it's really up to the HPA to scale however the HPA algorithms work, which are fairly black box. Like you can't really control how many instances scale. Like I do notice for mine, I usually go from like 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8, 8 to 16 when I do like heavy load, but it's not always that way. And I don't have full control over exactly when and how it scales because it's just the HPA. So I think there's two potential options here, and we don't have to drill into them fully here, but this is a good discussion point, at least that come to mind for me. There's one option where, at least from the 0 to 1 step, I think there's a world that KEDA could go from 0 to 2 or 0 to 4, assuming that like that would be the minimum instance count. But that would get you part of the way there. Once you want to go from like a number above 0 to something else, to have more control over that, we'd have to start looking into, should KEDA have an option to not use the HPA? And should KEDA maybe look at integrating with a custom autoscaler where we have more flexibility and control to tweak some of those knobs? Because tweaking the HPA is possible, but that's a whole other process because that's like integrated into Kubernetes and goes with Kubernetes releases and is a long life cycle. So we have limited control on what we could do, primarily from the 0 to X phase. From X to beyond, I think the conversation that has come up in another conversation I had this week too around KEDA is potentially KEDA should be flexible enough to integrate with an autoscaler that's not the HPA so that we get more control and knobs over how and when it scales.
So a quick question on that, because the HPA is using the get metrics function in KEDA to decide what scale it's trying to get to. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Find like the current metric and then the target metric.
So I guess the question I would have, I guess specifically in the case of the Postgres scaler where you have a database, if I were to set some sort of like a database rule for like, say, store state in the Postgres, and when it's doing the periodic ping, it can just kind of do whatever math. So, you know, if that row is 30 seconds old and it's like of size 2, then add 2 to that, and then basically keep external state. Maybe that could solve that.
It's possible. Like I'd be curious to get other people's thoughts on the call as well, whether in chat or if you want to unmute. Like the proposal you kind of went with is the HPA is going to be doing some decisions based on the metric it sees currently and then the target metric that you define. And you're kind of saying, what if when we publish the metric, we kind of game that metric so that if it's been a long time or like whatever, there's some logic that's like, yeah, hey, even though the number of rows is 3, the 3 rows are really old. So tell the HPA that the number is 30 so that the HPA does more work. It's possible. It just requires that we kind of like that logic now rests with the scaler to kind of reverse engineer and in some ways game the system. I'm kind of okay either way on that one. It's just a little bit, we're kind of indirectly influencing scale rather than directly controlling it. But I would assume it would work just fine.
Hey,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think like because the situation that I've received feedback on is like, let's say, so we're the Postgres query we're using right now is like number of running plus number of queued divided by number of threads per worker. So if you had a situation where you had like 1,000 tasks that each run for 5 seconds, you might not want to scale to like 100 pods just to do 1,000 tasks if those tasks are going to be like finished within like, you know, like when like 10 pods could basically do it all in a minute.
Sure. Anurag, did you have a thought? I know you were muted for a bit.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying that I think that makes sense what Daniel is saying. We can hack it or sort of, but I feel that there are many other scenarios where having a custom autoscaler would help. I think you mentioned some of them yesterday when you were in your email, and I believe I think you mentioned that, but I'm not 100% sure. Knative also supports that, right? That you can get your own custom autoscaler.
Sure. Knative serving by default comes with its own autoscaler.
But you can bring your, like, you can also, it comes with its own scaler. You
Yeah,
can use
like
the
you
HPA.
can say use HPA instead of our own custom thing.
You can use HPA. You can use the Knative autoscaler, but can you get your own as
You
well?
can implement your own as well. But
Yeah, that's what I was
the
asking. Right.
approach that Dan was describing was sort of what I had in mind initially, as well. Like I thought we could give HPA the metrics that we like. The scalars could be smart enough to kind of control HPA just through the metrics that they're exposing. That would require us to, or at least from my side, I figured that would require me to kind of understand very well how HPA actually does the scaling and how we can, what kind of metrics do you need to give it to be smart enough to have it to scale to what you want it to scale to. But I think there's still value there, but I think the idea of integrating with other autoscalers is also valuable eventually.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I can see both solutions, like one being a short term, one being a long term solution.
I think that's a good one. So yeah, maybe for the sake of time, I think the answer is there is definitely interest. I think there's even been some consensus that how you were thinking about it initially is like, hey, the scaler uses some logic to push metrics that make sense for what it's trying to do is valid. And so if you want to create an issue or even move the discussion to GitHub or Slack or wherever else, or even start some work of what you're imagining or a proposal, I think that's a great next step.
Awesome, thank you.
Sweet. Okay, so next then.
Hey, I just have a very
Conrad.
quick question. So for the ones that we are doing for database, I'm just curious on how do we so we just query, and if we get some results, is it just the number of results of the query?
No, you can actually define whatever query you want.
Yeah, you can define any query, and is the metric that you're scaling up just the number of results? If you don't get any results, you don't. Is that what you use? Just
yeah, so I can show you what we're currently using for Airflow. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Yeah.
I don't want to hijack this thing, but is it okay to spend a couple of minutes on this?
I'm cool with it. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I have the page up. Let me just quickly. Is it cool if I take over the screen for a second?
Yep. Go for it.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So you can actually define any arbitrary query. So
Nice.
for us, we do select count of. So we do count number of rows divided by 16, which is a concurrency, from the task instance table where the state is either running or queued.
Got it. And if and the metric that you scale on is the okay, so it's actually a scalar value that you're using, not the number of rows.
Exactly.
Got it. It's one value which this is returning.
It's to the point where yes, so it has to. You can put in any query you want as long as it returns an integer. And we are even planning on exposing this to users. So if they want to get clever, they can try to figure out their own scaling database query.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So it's basically one integer value that is returned by our query.
Yes, so it'll error, like KEDA will error out if you don't return an integer.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Great. Good discussion. Okay, Tom, I see you've got a bunch of agenda items. I don't know if you have any updates that you want to share now, or if you just want to wait till we get to that and we move on to some of the stuff that Mel and Sandra have been doing. Your call on this one. Okay, I will take the muted as we'll keep going, but maybe we can circle back. Ahmed, I don't know if you have any updates, or Ahmed and Anirudh, kind of both of you, any updates from our side that's worth sharing as we just kind of do the round table of updates?
Yeah, there's actually something that I wanted to discuss. I don't know if anybody on the call, there's an issue that somebody opened. I'm sorry, the name escapes me, about changing our namespace from kid8.io. That's probably a breaking change that we will have to take. There's an issue open for it on GitHub.
Yep, I see it. Yep, right here from Thomas.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take that eventually. Unfortunately, we should have thought about it before 1.0, but that's true. The namespace that we're using is not. It's the Kubernetes namespace, and we don't have permissions to use that.
I see.
So,
Okay. Do we have a time? Like, yeah. So this would follow with KEDA 2.0, which I'm fine to do whenever. Do we have a time? Like, is there a time that we need to do this on? Is there some urgency here?
Just one quick thing, Ahmed.
I'm not sure. I was asking.
Ahmed, if I was just looking at, he says that we would need to have approval. We may not want to do it, but is there a process to even ask for approval?
I don't know.
At least that's what he says. It's a different matter that we may not want to do it and that's it. Because if you just say the first line of this, can we go up right at the top?
Yeah.
Yeah, he says in order to use, KEDA would need to have approval.
They have a whole review process, which is very long.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So if the process is super painful and probably it's not the right thing to do in any way.
So there are a couple of mandatory rules where one is it needs to be part of github.com/kubernetes/kubernetes and it needs to be part of the core.
Oh, okay, got it.
So I think we might just bite the bullet.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the urgency for it, but it's just something to keep an eye on, or maybe discuss with the folks that open the issue to see how urgent it is for them.
I'll add a 2.0 timeline.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm fine if we do a 2.0 whatever in the next month. Like it's a version number. We don't need to feel like it has to be an annual release like Windows or something. This can be more like Chrome. But that's good to bring up, Ahmed. Thomas just joined the Slack group I saw, so I might ping him on Slack as well, and or even on the issue, and we can try to sort out when we need to do that by. Anything else, Ahmed or Anirudh, you wanted to flag as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing that for release of KEDA, I was able to finally corner Ahmed and just write down what we are doing now. And I have a wiki page, which probably, and Tom already gave some comments, so I will clean it up based on his comments. Thanks, Tom. And also then probably move it to a certain place so that folks just have a good view of what the release process is, and they can also be right now. Ahmed has been doing it right from the beginning, but they could possibly be multiple people who could help out as well. So just wanted to mention that.
Perfect. And so I added that to the meeting notes, and I assume too, when we'll see how the rest of these roundtable updates go, that we'll probably have 1.2 with some new scalers like this Postgres scaler, Azure Monitor scaler, that might be coming up in the next week or so. So
yeah, perfect. So we can do a 1.2 in next week or so. We'll figure it out.
Great. Lance, anything from your side?
No, I'm just here watching and listening.
Yep, no worries. Lucas?
No, that's a curious point to 2.0, because that brings us back to the conversation about the scaled object. Do we stick with one or multiple ones? So if we do a 2.0, I think we should rediscuss that and finally decide and stick with it forever.
Sure. Lucas, anything from your side?
I thought, Tom, you would say that and then change it back again in 3.0. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything from Lucas. So Mel, any updates or questions or areas we can help with?
So I am still working on the Azure Monitor scaler. We'll probably have a initial PR out Friday, definitely Monday. I ran into a little bit of issues with the docs, and so I'm going to update those. I personally like docs to be very detailed and explicit, so I'm going to fix an error and then add a couple steps that weren't mentioned.
That would be really awesome. That would be awesome.
I'm sorry?
I'm just appreciating that. I'm saying that would be awesome.
Yeah. And then what else? Something that I ran to that was a little frustrating is, and maybe someone who knows the KEDA code base better knows something different about this than I do. But the initial spec that Tom proposed was like multiple indentations of YAML. So it was like metadata and then multiple sections under metadata and then like a section under each of those sections. But when I was looking through the KEDA code, it seems like it very much enforces the flat structure of just metadata and then a bunch of the key value pairs under it. And I couldn't find like an easy way if you wanted to have like multiple nested things.
Never trust what I'm saying.
No, I don't think there's an easy way in the code to do that. It's metadata is a string to string map.
Yeah, so I mean, I personally, for me, I just took the like beginning words of each of the sections and then like prepended it and called it a day. But something to think about in the future, because for example, with the Azure Monitor example, it would be nice if there was more options than just like the metadata with a flat key value pair, since there are like several different pieces to it. But maybe that's a future problem.
That makes sense, though. Yeah, because I imagine you've got with Azure Monitor, there are a number of different config properties, and just doing those at a flat list. Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up.
Oh, and I also, one thing that was not in the spec that Tom had, I added like a threshold, like similar to how the Prometheus scaler works, since the threshold is going to be different based on which metric you're getting from Azure Monitor.
Ah, yes, that's a crucial point.
Great. Let me add, let me do action items. I'll create an issue for the nesting just to have conversation and let other folks allow nesting of metadata just to see where that takes us. So we can track that, because that's a fair ask. And then I'll also create an issue for updating it was the how to build a scalar README that I think on Slack you were mentioning had some inconsistencies.
You can go ahead and assign it to me. Like I already have started writing the changes.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for fixing my markdown as well, Tom. Updating the.
It's the main README page, since that has the local stuff and creating a scalar.
Somebody also just created a pull request for that. I'm not sure if it talks about the same changes, but you might want to have a look.
Oh, I see right here. Okay, great.
Okay.
I'll poke at that too when I do this. All right, thank you. Anything else, Mel? That was super helpful.
Nope, that's it.
Great. Sandra, anything from your side?
No updates.
Perfect. Zibyanek, anything from you?
Yeah, so we have the operator hub ready. So I will start let's say the release process or the acceptance process to have it listed on the operator hub page. But if we are going to release 1.2 next week, I will probably release this version, so we don't have like two versions in a short row. So if we can since on the release next week, I will probably start releasing this one as well.
Sounds good. And I know we pinged some offline. Is there still a pull request that didn't get into 1.1 that might have been closed now that's blocking any of
No, it is still there. It's 506.
And so is this isn't blocking, or it would be blocking?
I would like to have it like in the release in the 1.2.
Okay.
It's a very simple change. I basically just split the containers from one deployment to separate deployments. It's just there are no like change in the let's say in the code itself, and I like a little bit change the structure of the YAML files to be like more consistent.
Great.
So it is not change the functionality, just in the deployment.
And Ahmed or Anurad, I know this one has been open for a bit. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it all, if you had any open questions or concerns on it that might stop it from getting into 1.2 whenever that happens.
No, I can take a look at it again. I remember looking at it a while ago, and I don't remember why I stopped looking at it, but I can look at it again.
Awesome, thank you.
The question I have too, of something you brought up, when this is on Operator Hub, like as Onward mentioned, we updated the release process, and it's like, hey, here's how to get the new images. Then we need to update Helm charts. Then we need to update the YAML in the repo. Is there an additional step here where we need to do anything to update Operator Hub so that it's using the latest version?
Yes. I will add that section. This will be needed, and it could be automated, I suppose. So I hope that it
Sure.
could be more.
Yeah, we do have some GitHub Actions that are doing a lot of the Docker stuff. So maybe if there's even a way to use GitHub Actions to do it with the release would be kind of nice.
Yeah, and I have one more note to the possible 2.0. Maybe we can think about the duck typing thing that the Knative folks are using for.
Sure.
For the.
Yeah, I was trying to read up on that, and there weren't a lot of resources to kind of understand what that is. Is there something that I can look at that will help me understand how that's used?
Yeah, I maybe can find something, but there are not that much documentation. There are some, some papers in the Google Docs, and
I think the Knative folks have some. The Knative folks have some.
Actually, I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
I find a lot of documentation in Google Docs that when I click on, I don't have permissions to. I don't know how that works. Do I need to join a Google group or something?
If you join the Knative Google Docs drive over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the main idea behind this is basically it's about the internal implementation. So basically we can reference in the scaled object any object that is capable of scaling. So we can have like the deployment, we can have the stateful set job, and it could be basically scaled by KEDA very easily because it implements the scale sub-resource. So we can like create the scale based on this. So in the future, if there are more objects that can be scaled, this could be very easily like extended in KEDA in the code base because it will use this approach. It's just the idea. I haven't like thought about it much, but we can discuss it.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I'll create an issue for duck typing. The other option too, Ahmed, is I know Scott and Matt from now VMware are more than happy to. When we were at dinner with them, I think he said like we'll do as much of this as we can with KEDA. So we can also lean on them either whether it's we have like where they do a brain dump or even they kind of show us what the pattern would look like. I think there's a few folks on that side who would help with the duck typing specifically.
Yeah, I was going to mention exactly that. They said they could help with that. Also, I think I was started to listen to, and they have some KubeCon talks as well. So Ahmed, I'll just send you a link to that.
Yes, they gave a talk on it last KubeCon on YouTube too.
Correct.
Great. Okay, Tom, I apologize. It's 10:31. Let's jump here. So I'll let you cover some of these items in whatever order you want, Tom. And sorry, Sibunik, were you good? Anything else? I don't want to cut you off. I don't know if you had any last ones. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
So last week we discussed to add more logos. So I have a PR open for that. So KEDA.sh would have basically an extended community section. There's no screenshot, sorry. I don't think there is one. But basically it would have a community section of the countries who are, the companies, sorry, that are contributing. And I also opened an issue to see who's actually using KEDA. And then above the community section, we could then also list a customer gallery, let's say. So that we see who's using it and why they are supporting us, basically. And then the other one is that there's a refresh of the .NET Core sample with Service Bus because I'm going to butcher his name, but Jacob M or something contributed a front end for it so that if you're using it, you can also now visually see how KEDA is training the whole queue, and over there's also an action item for you, Jeff, to give me permission so that I can set up the CI build, and also to push to a KEDA Docker Hub account. so that it's
Yep.
not on our private accounts anymore.
So one question about the customer list, just kind of seeing how you guys would want to do it. Like, assuming everything works out, which I don't see why it wouldn't, and KEDA becomes like a scaling backend for Airflow, would you guys want to just would you want to just use Apache Airflow as a user, or would you want us to try to see what companies are actually using the KEDA auto scaling with Apache Airflow?
My suggestion would be to just refer to Airflow, and then implicitly that means all your customers could
Sounds
potentially be using us, if that's okay.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Great. Yeah, great issues, Tom. And on the, I'll add the item for the .NET one too. I'm curious how that visualization. Oh, is it just this where it does the Git deployments and then you watch it with this one?
If you do a search for here it is.
Visualizing. Oh,
It's
nice.
just a simple chart, but it works fine.
Yeah, that's cool. Very nice. Great.
I think that was it. No news on the CNCF front. They discussed it and they're waiting for more people to give the sign off.
And they did. I know they discussed it. You might know better. I saw you ping that issue for CNCF. Did they discuss it in the oversight committee yet, or is it still just being discussed in the SIG for runtime?
In the SIG, but there was only one chair. He said that he wanted the input from other co-chairs and tech leads, and then it died. So basically today I pinged them again.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. We're kind of the victim of a new process and some new SIGs, because I gave it like the runtime SIG and the app SIG are brand new and still like we've been working with the serverless work group, which hasn't even figured out if it's going to be in runtime or apps. And then there's this whole new process. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye and poke it, because I don't want this to get delayed too much just because there's some growing pains happening elsewhere. But so far it seems to be progressing nice, and I have gotten a few pings from some different folks in CNCF who have been aware of the proposal, and so far everything looks great. So I know it's making progress just based on the number of folks pinging me from CNCF, but hoping it doesn't get stuck anywhere.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I had this exact same concern that because of a new process, hopefully we're not a victim of that.
Yeah. So Tom gets credit here because he's the one who just pinged the issue this morning. So appreciate the help with that, Tom, and I'll be there to help out as well.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, this was one. Maybe we'll do this one quickly. I'm almost, Tom, if you can do a brain dump. We don't have to go through every issue here. I just want to do a quick scan to make sure there's no issues or PRs that are concerning. I saw one person. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I saw that the Postgres one got merged, but we still need docs for that one. It's an important one.
Yes. So that would be good, Daniel, if you can go add in the docs repo. I'll paste in a second. If you can just add something so it shows up in this list for the Postgres one. It just has to happen sometime before we do 1.2. But it can even happen a little earlier. Like for the blob one, we merged it in slightly before 1.1, which was okay. We had a few people who were confused by it, but it's hard to get the timing perfect.
Do you have a sense of when the 1.2 would be cut? Like, do you think I'd have time to get a MySQL one in as well before that?
I think it would be good to wait for the stuff Mel's working on if we could with Azure Monitor, and she mentioned that there might be a PR Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and I assume there'll be some revision. So if I was guessing, I would say like early Feb would be 1.2, but we could do 1.2 sooner if we're waiting on it and need to do it sooner.
It should be fine for now. So I have a repo that people are playing with, and I just kind of point them to my Docker Hub.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything compelling that we need to get in. So,
but by the way, I did have one more question. Has there been any discussion about using Kind for integration tests?
Oh, is this like a framework?
Or just like having an integration test suite? Because I could see it being, at least for the Postgres side, it'd be pretty easy to like Helm install a Postgres instance and then just like make sure that it's able to connect.
I have my
So-
own sort of makeshift integration test suite. There's a test folder that kind of describes how that works. I was attempting to do something similar with Redis, where I just use Helm to install Redis and then run the test for it. But so far, I've only have tests for like cloud events that are sort of kind of easy to create and just use the values for.
Yeah.
But if there is another framework that works better, feel free to point me to it. But you can see the tests that we have in the test folder. Those are sort of.
I'll check those out.
Yeah, every to do the nightly test we have, which it is still failing. So maybe that's one question, Ahmed or Anirudh, if we know why the nightly test. It's something about the queue that's complaining. It's saying the queue's not scaling down fast enough. But every night we have a cluster that gets spun up. We install a bunch of stuff on it, install some scalers. So we could continue to leverage that. But as Ahmed mentioned, if there's a different framework that might even do this easier.
Yeah, actually, that's a good reminder. I wanted to also pick Ahmed's brain on this and document this as well. And I'll do that this week. But yeah, so just to kind is like Minikube, is it? Like not used it before. What does it give us?
Oh, so kind is Kubernetes and Docker. It's we use it for Airflow, and it's also what Kubernetes itself uses for integration testing. It's
Cool.
It's lighter weight than Minikube. It allows for, I believe, it allows for like kind of. It's a lot closer to a real Kubernetes feel than Minikube has, and it's also just a lot cleaner to set up. Minikube can. We used to use Minikube for integration tests, and it was kind of a nightmare.
So basically, so you don't have to. I think in this case, Ahmed, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you actually have a proper full-blown Kubernetes cluster in AKS, right?
Yeah, or any like
right.
So any
and
Docker, yeah.
If you use kind, we wouldn't have to do that.
Exactly.
Right. So
if you might still have to figure out how to do, because I see that there's a lot of Azure integration. So, I mean, but I guess that shouldn't be a problem, because as long as you have like whatever API keys to hit those Azure
exactly.
Yeah, kind is a lot. It is a much cleaner experience in Minikube, or having to start a cloud Kubernetes instance.
Got it. Yeah, exactly. That's fair. Okay.
And I was wrong, by the way. It looks like the Q one is succeeding now, and now it's our new blob end-to-end test that just got checked in that seems to be failing.
Yeah, the blob one is the one that started failing. I need to look at it. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's hard sometimes because some of these, like if blob has a hiccup and then we're not scaling because blob's not sending the right stuff. So either way, okay.
Yeah, and
I'll go for it.
Oh, me? No, sorry, nothing.
Yeah, you're fine. Okay, yes, and then this was the other one. So looking at pull requests here, there's a few. I don't think I see anything here that's some README edits, which is nice. There was someone on Slack who was saying that the new Kafka authentication options weren't working for them, but I don't know if I ever got an answer back. And then issue-wise, just digging through here, the only one I saw that had a fair bit of back and forth was this config map one. But again, I was trying to parse it before the call. I saw Tom. Oh, it's Tom and Tom, both Toms on this one. I don't know, Tom, if you have any thoughts on if this one's worth discussing or if we should just keep it to GitHub.
I need somebody with more technical knowledge, because I can help them.
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can parse it, and then maybe Zibyanek, Ahmed, Anirudh, or anyone else if you want to poke at this too. Okay, so we're 42 minutes in. We've checked off all the agenda items. We had updates. Anything else anyone wants to discuss while we're on the call?
I had one quick thing. I
Go
don't
for it.
know if this is my computer thing, but when I am deploying locally and follow the instructions and everything, and change it to pull if not present, I get an error if I don't push my image to my repo first.
So you've got And when you say deploy locally, you mean you've got a fork of KEDA locally, or are you even running in like Minikube?
Fork of KEDA locally, and I'm using like an actual Kubernetes cluster.
I see. And if and so you make a change to the image, but you don't push the image up to Docker Hub yet, or whatever registry you're using.
Yep.
And then if you do change to pull if not present, it errors. If you don't change to pull if not present, it doesn't error.
No, I haven't tried it without changing it. The issue is that I get like an error image pull back off. So it tries to pull it and it can't find it because it hasn't been pushed.
Right.
Mel, this is KEDA you're building locally?
Yeah. It's probably because it's on an actual Kubernetes cluster and I'm not using like Minikube or anything like that.
Yeah. One other option, just to put it out there, is if you use Kind and you're doing local deployments,
Yep.
Kind has Kind load Docker image, and so then you could just push it into the node, and then you don't have to do any form of pulling at all.
Into the node. Okay.
So like if you're offline, you could set the image pull policy to never, and then if you do Kind load Docker image and then the name of it, it will push from your local Docker registry into the Kind node, and then it will load, and that's great. It's great for like offline work.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I love this comment in the chat, but I looked at the README update PR and it's like good for initial thing, but I was going to put in more info. And I think it would be helpful for me to like add this, like, oh, if you're using a Kubernetes cluster, you either need to push to your repo or you need to use what Daniel's talking about.
Yep, agree. I think the kind of thought is accurate in that once it's in the cloud, you would have to push it. But if you don't want to have to push something, then you could use Kind or I don't know if Minikube has the same feature to pull from the other one, but that's great insight too, and that would be super nice to have in that build a scalar contributor doc.
One other thing I'm looking into, by the way, I'll try to report on this next week, is has anyone here heard of telepresence?
I've seen it because Microsoft Dev Spaces or something uses it, but I don't know specifics about it. I've just kind of seen it floating around in terms of dev workflows with containers.
It seems pretty awesome. So I'm going to try to see if we can if basically it allows you to take local code and basically do run things locally as if they're a part of the Kubernetes cluster. And so if I can get, I'll try to report back if I can get KEDA to work with that, and then that would definitely like reduce the time of having to like push and then deploy images.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Mel. Anything else? Great. Thanks. I'll go ahead and upload this recording. The notes are here, and then we'll plan on chatting again next week as well for the next stand-up.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
Perfect. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.